Welcome to Say More Words on location at my house. For those of you who are listening and not watching our YouTube channel, this is my friend Jerah, who I'm super excited to introduce you to. But first, she needs to tell us what the song of the day is.
Oh man, so you hit me with this and I really had to think about it. So I think today's song of the day is going to be called, it's Mastermind by Grace Potter. And
Okay.
it's really like upbeat, jovial, and it's basically like a recipe, right? 1 part sugar, 2 parts feeling, right? 3 cups full of bottled lightning. You're gonna love the song. And it's basically like a recipe for the mastermind.
Awesome.
I think
I
you'll
love
like
it. So Jerah and I met, it's been about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, at a networking meeting. And she was one of those people that I was just naturally drawn to. I think I talked about it in one of my episodes. It's like I choose people and I'm like, you get to be mine whether you like it or not. And and you're mine. And it was from like the very first sarcastic thing that came out of your mouth. I was like, oh, that's amazing. Jerah taught me, I knew how to shoot a gun, but she taught me my concealed carry class a million years ago. And I just love everything about your spirit and who you are as a person and what you stand up for, because there are so many people who are living such inauthentic lives these days, especially online. And what you see is what you get with you, which is one of the most amazing qualities to have. It allows others to show up as their true selves when you show up as your true self. So I think outside of all of the wonderful, beautiful classes and things that you teach, one of the best things you teach is how to be authentically you.
Well, thank you.
Who is Jerah Hutchins?
Oh man. She, in this chapter, in this season of life, I think she's a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I think that we've really lost sight of the fact that many things can be true at once. Okay? Things that you may not agree with or even like, but it doesn't make them any less true, right? So, and I preach this all the time because I'm in the self-defense space, I'm in the gun space, I'm in a Second Amendment space, and so people are very one-sided, on that, and they say, oh, so you've got these people over here that hate the police and call them bootlickers, right? And then you've got all these people over here that are back the blue no matter what, and I think that there's no meeting in the middle, right? And going, two things can be true at once. There are bad cops who need to be held accountable, and there are bad people that need to be held accountable. And I think it works because no human is perfect. What I want to teach people, especially when they come to me, with a need for self-defense, is this has to be deployed with wisdom and tact. And you have to really be able to analyze the situation and ask the right questions before you make a decision, right? So we don't just need shooters, we need thinkers. I think that someone is capable of living an authentic life, but an illogical life, because I don't necessarily believe in your truth. I believe in the truth, but I also believe in your experience, which I believe that people are calling their truth.
Yes.
But really it's their perspective based on their past experiences. And sometimes our feelings and our emotions need to be controlled. I think there's a time to let them out, and there's a time to talk about them and let them sort of guide your path. And then I think there's a time when you need to go, you know what, this happened to me, but it doesn't define me. And so I need to kind of push this over here and deal with it, or even compartmentalize it for a minute and understand that there's more to it than just my experience. And I say this a lot when I testify in hearings on gun control or people that are wanting to put unreasonable restrictions on people's right to self-defense. And I say many, many times when we are defending a fundamental right, we are often doing it in the midst of someone's most egregious life pain. The first thing that a lot of people want to do when they lose a son or a daughter to a shooting, or a really close family member, a father, a mother, they immediately want to go and they want to enact some kind of gun control. And these gun control politicians feed off that. They want to use these people and exploit their pain to further their agenda. When really what we can't do, even though this experience was really, really tough for you, and we get that, like nobody's trying to minimize your pain, but we can't take away a fundamental right and then make people vulnerable on a micro level, because the government cannot protect you on a micro level. It's not their job. They're supposed to protect you on a macro level, right? From invasions from other countries and things like that. It's our responsibility to protect ourselves and our communities on a micro level.
Well, it's hard for the average person to look past, like as you said, look past their emotions. It's one of the things I teach, and part of the reason why I teach people to know themselves on a truer level, because you're right, when you go through trauma, you're now laced, a lot of people experience trauma and then lace every experience based off of that traumatic response because they stay in victim mode and that's comfortable to them. It is much harder to get into victor mode and see that everything that you're experiencing in life is being laced with that emotion.
You're really right. I did that for over a decade.
Yeah.
I was raped when I was 16, and I took that experience and I blamed all men for that.
Yeah.
It's the same concept
Yeah.
that we just talked about, right? Your son or your daughter gets killed in a shooting, and now you want to take away everybody's guns.
Yeah.
Or you want to enact procedures that don't make sense and processes that don't make sense, right? I did that for over 10 years. I was a man-hater for a long time. No one was good enough. No one was trustworthy. Everyone was out to get me. And I had to come to the realization that if I didn't move past that, I was going to be alone forever. And I wouldn't want someone to treat me the way that I treated a lot of these men.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just, you have to put the truth over your emotion sometimes, and you have to go, this is something that happened to me. It's not something that defines me. You have to move forward in your life with it.
Amen. That's a whole word.
It's big stuff.
Oh, so good. So I want you to say more words about like what it is that you do inside of Clearing the Chamber, all of the different positions that you hold, what you teach. Tell everyone a little bit more about that.
I started teaching, I was a competition shooter in my youth, and I started teaching more once I got out of competition. So the short story is I got a blood clot in my dominant eye. So I had to learn how to run guns left-handed, long guns really. And that was pretty difficult. So when you've been a right-handed shooter your whole life and then you turn, I mean, imagine losing your dominant hand.
Right.
And then you have to learn how to do everything with this hand. It's really tough. So when that happened and I was learning how to master long guns with my left hand, which actually ended up being a benefit because I can run two platforms at the same time and they're not strapped on the same side, so I'm not fumbling across them, right? I can do long gun on left side and I can do pistol on right. You know, so I can still run a pistol with my right hand very proficiently, but it made me ambidextrous with a pistol too.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful in training because if you're simulating injury, so if you're trying to train for things that are plausible and probable, right? You could be injured in a situation, so you may need to run your other hand. But as I was doing that, I started teaching more than competing. So sometimes, you know how they say, a mediocre player can be a great coach,
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was good, and then I became mediocre, but then I became a really good coach. And the more that I learned about outside of just, teaching nomenclature and teaching basic gun handling, the more advanced material that I learned and the more advanced classes that I took, the more that I realized that women were a very underserved market in the gun space. And this was in, I've been teaching for 15 years now, so this was in the 2000s when I really started teaching. And there weren't a lot of female instructors, but you have to be logical again in the understanding that you can start your training with a female instructor, but if you're going to get any real world experience, you really do have to incorporate male instructors into the mix because that's who your aggressor would probably be, is a male. And so you have to get both perspectives and both dynamics, and you have to really, it comes down to having the confidence to train with both genders. That's where women are lacking. And people ask me, how do you know that? Well, because men typically get into guns because it's fun, or they're raised that way. It's a common thing, or it was a common thing. Bitter tears of mediocre men, right? This is what we've come to here a little bit in our society. But that's why they would get into it. Women, on the other hand, for the most part, are getting into guns out of necessity. A trauma occurred. A fear is there. They are now alone and not under the wing of the protection of their parents, right? So they're getting into it out of necessity. And so there is a different kind of way that you have to teach women like that, but a lot of things are very foundational for both genders.
Yeah.
And so what I took from my training was I wanted to bring that and make it more accessible to women, and I wanted to make it more comfortable for women. So for a lot of those 15 years, I really specialized in the basics, teaching the basics really well and getting women ready and confident to be able to take more advanced training from men who had more experience than me. And that I was very, very content in that space for a long time. And then I met a guy named Rob Pincus who was like, no, I'm going to teach, I want you to learn, you need to learn how to teach more advanced training so that you are actually preparing people for advanced training. So when I took this instructor development course with him back in 2020, what it really taught me was that there were things in the basic space, in the foundational space, that I was actually missing, that I wasn't teaching women to get them ready for advanced training, right? So it's almost like you had to go forward to go backward a little bit.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And so it kind of opened up a whole new world for me. So I love teaching women, and I really enjoy teaching the basics, but I now know a whole new library of things to teach. And so it opened up my business space too. So I think I probably have about 70% women as clientele and then 30% men.
Yeah.
So I do have men that are coming to learn from me, but it's a lot of it is the husbands of the women that I teach that go home and go, you're not doing that right.
You tried to teach me.
Yeah, and so the husbands are going, am I not? Like, maybe I do need formal training, because a lot of men don't get formal training either. They learn from their grandpa or they learn from their dad, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Right.
It's just there's some little tweaks that you need to know to be the safest and to be the most accurate, and to have a realistic view of what a situation of duress really looks like, how you analyze it, what questions to ask, and understanding when there's no questions that need to be asked and you just got to smoke a motherfucker.
What is it that you say?
Same day shipping to Jesus.
Same day shipping to Jesus.
I'm faster than FedEx.
My favorite. Oh, that is my favorite. And it's so true. And the minute you pointed it out to me, like, I never noticed it, but you pointed it out in class and were like, you see men trying to teach their spouses and they don't actually know what they're doing. And now every time I go to the range, I see that. I see a guy trying to teach a girl and I'm like, you don't know what you're doing.
Sometimes it is that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and once again, we're moving into this logical space, because it's really easy to kick men in the balls on this. It's really easy. Yeah. I mean, really, honestly, we're living in a society right now where we're just kicking men in the nuts all the time.
True.
Okay?
True. Yeah, you're right.
And I think that there's, sometimes when that needs to happen, but really, a lot of the time, it's really just coming together and compromising and having a valid perspective on each side and just coming to a compromise.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's men don't know what they're doing when they're teaching their wives or their significant others. But a lot of times, what it really is that they're too emotionally invested in the outcome to have patience.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the more husbands that realize this, the more fathers that realize this, they will send their wives to someone else, because a lot of times even another man can be more patient with this person's wife than the husband is, because there's so much emotional investment. Now, on the flip side of that, we have women that are really bucking against their husbands to learn this skill, And they're getting mad at their husbands for wanting them to learn this skill when really it's the husband trying to say, I care about you and I want you to be safe when I'm not around you.
Yeah, I want to protect
And so
you.
now we've got arguments and we've got problems in the marriage because this husband wants their wife to be safe when they're traveling or when they're not around them or when they're with their kids. And here's something else that's going to blow your mind. Women are actually statistically more likely to have to physically defend children than men are.
Mm-hmm.
Who spends more time with the kids?
The women typically.
Who spends more time alone with the kids?
Yeah, shoot.
Who's the softer target? Are you more likely to be attacked when you're out as a family with your husband? Are your children more likely to be attacked when they're with the father or with the mother? Who's the softer target, right? So it's almost unfair because we are the softer target, yet we spend more time with the kids. We spend more time alone with the kids. And so we're looked at as the easy get. So we have to be prepared for that.
Especially in today's world.
Now I'm going to add a whole nother layer to it that's even more mind-blowing, okay? Because we're strong, independent women, right? Okay? And we look at this word submission as a bad thing. But hear me out. Mothers are supposed to be nurturing to their children, but also fiercely protective of their children. Okay? But the nurturing is kind of the front and foremost mission. But is not your submission protection of the kids? Is that not your submission? Okay? Would it not be the father's primary responsibility when the family's together? First line of defense. But when he isn't there, so that's why it's kind of mind-blowing when I get students that come to me, women that come to me because their husbands made them come, and they're like, my husband is the protector. Like, my husband will do it.
Yeah.
Are you just gonna sing a song and he's gonna appear when he's across the country working and you're at home alone and someone breaks into your house at 2:00 in the morning?
Yeah.
Or someone tries to snatch your kid up at the grocery store? Or someone tries to mug you in the dark parking lot garage? Where's he gonna come from?
Right. How's he gonna show
What
up?
magic voodoo do you have that none of the rest of us know about?
Right.
Okay? No. So that is your submission. Is physical protection of your children.
Yeah.
And you have to be prepared to do that. And so when I ask women in my classes, as it stands right now, you sitting in that chair, if any of these scenarios that we just talked about came into play, would you be physically able, what do you think your chances would be? That you're physically able to fight off an attacker? What tools do you have at your disposal? Do you know how to use them? Are you proficient with them? And the answer is always no. Always no. Because you're going to fall back on your lowest level of training, and if you have none, you have none. But we always want to talk about Mama Bear.
Yeah. And I'm willing to do one of my favorite TikTok, we were talking about TikTok earlier, one of my favorite TikTok stories was, they were like, this is why you don't attack women in the Midwest, because they were interviewing women in like California or something, and that had their kids in their arms, and the interviewer goes, would you do anything to protect your kid, or would you kill to protect your kids? And line after woman after woman after woman, they were like, well, maybe, no. One woman was like, no, I wouldn't do that. Well, what's the scenario? No. And then they like go to women in the Midwest, and they're like, yeah, lock me up, I don't care. Like, I don't care. And it the narrative, I mean, it was really funny, but also the narrative of like, there's plenty of women who say, I will do anything to protect my kids, but don't do the training to protect their kids.
And look, I appreciate the honesty of the women that said, no, I wouldn't kill for my kids.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, What's happening up here where
Yeah.
you're not willing to protect your most precious asset? So I ask that question too. You know, would you be willing to die for your kids? I've never had anybody say no, but I turn around and I ask them another question. Would you be willing to live for your kids? Because you don't always have to die.
That's not the only ending.
It's not the only option that you have.
Yeah.
There is a way to make sure that you have your best chance to continue to live for your kids, but you got to go through the hard stuff. And a lot of that is, you know, diving in. Your body will never go where your mind has never been. And so if you're not going to dive into your own psyche and like play out these potential scenarios, even the scariest, most terrible ones, and go, what would I do? And can I keep myself even remotely together to execute what needs to be done? You have to think about that. And a lot of people don't even want to go to those darkest parts of their mind and go, you know what? I would do that, understanding that the pain of recovery is going to be real and it's going to be hard, because you don't just have to physically recover from an attack, you have to mentally recover from an attack. And that incorporates a lot of different treatments. Okay? But you got to do that. This is so much more than taking a gun class and learning grip and stance and sight picture and trigger pull. This is like carving out time for years of your life, okay, to take classes like unorthodox shooting positions. Because what if you have to shield your family behind a car?
Yeah.
And shoot from there, or under there,
Yeah.
or around there, or over there, right? It's incorporating things like doorways and corners where you are learning how to clear your own house in the most effective way possible if you hear something go bump in the night. It's about having conversations with your husband or wife about what is our self-defense game plan and how are we going to raise our kids and talk to our kids about this. All of these things and more.
Well, and one of the things that I love too when you teach your classes is you also, like, you have classes that don't start with just guns, because a lot of women don't want to start there, but you teach all of that. You teach the situational awareness on like how to use certain things in your life as a weapon, which I love. That's one of my favorite things that I've ever, like that class, and then the class that you taught on where to hide weapons on every kind of outfit.
Yeah, so that's my Preparing What You Wear workshop.
Yes.
Which I would love to do at your new event space. We could have a little fashion show.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
But there's a lot of gear that people don't even know exist that helps you conceal things in different outfits. There's not very many times when women need to purse carry. I've had to do it though, and there's a way to do that that's more effective than not effective. But there's a lot of on the body carry, even in cute outfits, even in skirts, even in jumpers that you can do that gives you your best chance. But you got to practice those things so that you don't forget, like your body doesn't freeze up and you forget, where's my gun on my body? At that point. I love that workshop, and then I love teaching situational awareness, really because I think it helps people become more comfortable the way that I teach it on having conversations like this with their friends and family and like people they're around a lot. So anybody that travels with me knows we having a safety brief at the airport, or we're having a safety brief in the car on the road trip, okay? And when everybody is assigned to bring something, like you can bring wine and you can bring snacks, and I got all the weapons, okay? Multiple choices.
Yeah.
You hear me? So we have to have those discussions, because if you don't have a brief, and this is the military in me coming out, if you don't have a brief, nobody knows what's going on. There's nothing to fall back on, and everybody's running around on their own path of chaos.
Yeah.
So you have to have a brief so that we're all on the same page. And the best example of that, I had a group of girlfriends, we went to New York. You can't have guns in New York, especially as an out-of-stater, okay? Yeah. It's hard enough for the people that live there to be able to get them. So they're not just going to let you haul them in from Texas,
Not going to yeehaw them up
baggage, and so we had to figure out, non-lethal weapons or impromptu weapons, that we could carry. And so one of the things that I did was when we landed in New York, I went and bought the cheapest bottle of wine and I carry a backpack everywhere. You know me, I'm not a purse person. And there's 2 pockets on the side of my backpack that are big enough for big water bottles, right? So we took that cheapest bottle of wine, I dumped it out into a what do you call those things, that decanter?
Yep.
Okay, in the hotel room, save the sucker for later. Okay, and I put that empty wine bottle in the pocket of my backpack, and I carried my backpack loose enough that I could just draw it out and hit somebody across the face with it.
I love it.
Don't come at me in Central Park. I may not win, but you're going to remember me. Okay?
You will not forget.
You'll not forget. And so you have to think about, stuff like that. There's a class I took, this guy that had traveled all these countries, and he was military and combat and all this stuff. And he came up with a really great workshop called Tourist Defense. And he would teach it in public, but you could also pay him to do, Zoom with you and give him this specific country that you're going to, and he would tell you places to avoid. Hey, you need to walk in the middle of the boardwalk because people will literally snatch your ass up in an alley. And here's impromptu weapons that you can purchase when you get there or carry with you, or all that kind of stuff. And it was really, really great information that I think more people should have access to. So now I'm working on a new workshop for time management for people that carry guns. So there's time management, right? There's to-do lists and discipline, and making yourself get your most important task. They tell you that in the book Eat That Frog.
Yeah.
They say your most important task, your MIT, is what you have to get done first thing in the morning. The hardest thing you have to do all day is what you got to get done first thing in the morning. And I take it a step further. And I want to teach you about that kind of stuff, but I also want to teach you the value of time and the value of buffers between meetings and preparing yourself the night before for the next day, because people, professional predators, they can tell just by your demeanor and how you walk to your car whether or not you're going to be a potentially easy target. Because the woman that's fumbling with her keys and has too many things in her hands and no, organized way to carry her load, she's going to be the easy target. So simple things like get you a wagon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pull that shit in a wagon so that you have at least one free hand to draw your gun, and then you drop the handle of the wagon and you got another free hand to defend your face, and you just smoke that dude. It's not that difficult. You just have to train yourself to respond and think that way. But when you have these buffers between meetings and you come to the realization that you can only handle so much in one day, then you're getting everywhere a little bit early, and you don't have to rush, and you have time to pack your things accordingly, move your things in that you need to teach your class or do your presentation, and you don't have to worry as much about being the person that's going to be attacked in the parking lot, because you're everywhere.
All over the place.
You're all over the place. You're more organized. So organization saves lives. I'm a thorough believer in that.
Yeah. Damn. I love it. Well, tell everybody where they can find you, and we'll link it in the show notes as well. But where can we find you?
I am on Instagram and Facebook at Clearing the Chamber.
Okay.
And then my website is clearingthechamber.com. It's going to be relaunched next week, because I put a bunch of new stuff on there, new swag, new classes, upcoming events that we're going to potentially have with, maybe even Operation Underground Railroad. So I've been having a lot of really great talks with the president of Operation Underground Railroad, who, Tim Ballard founded that organization.
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom is about Tim Ballard, and that's the next move. Is I really want to try to get more involved in the human trafficking space. We need more women involved in the human trafficking space. We're able to get in places that sometimes men can't go. We're able to get information sometimes that men can't get, and we are a nurturing force for these kids that are being rescued, and they need aftercare. And we need women to participate in the aftercare of these kids so that they understand what human contact is supposed to be like, and what human interaction, loving, good, productive interaction is supposed to be like, so that we don't have kids that sit in trauma for the rest of their life and use it as a crutch, and they can move on through the healing process. So clearingthechamber.com, at clearingthechamber. I'm on Rumble at clearingthechamber as well. So that's how you can find me.
Yay! Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your light and sharing your information. I think it's very important. Obviously, as a trauma survivor, I'm a huge, what are the words that I'm looking for? Not proponent. Advocate. Thank you for safety and knowing your surroundings and taking care of yourself and your family and your people. So I appreciate you. I appreciate how beautifully you talk about this subject, because it's something that people can eat and they can digest, and it's not something that's overwhelming. And I appreciate you and who you are.
You do. And for the most part, you have to approach it professionally. You have to approach it calmly. But every now and then you do have to be really adamant and almost stank about your space, your personal space, your boundaries, and, being very vocal and being an advocate for your right to self-defense.
Yeah.
And, so there's a time to be professional about it, and, there's a time to just curse somebody out about it. And you got to know when the difference is.
That's my favorite. And that's the best way to end. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.